Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to day two of the Skills Market Hall at the 10th edition of the Knowledge Summit 2025. I'm Malak, and I'm very happy to guide you through today's program as we continue exploring how knowledge and skills contribute to sustainability and future-ready communities. We'll begin with our first session of the day titled From Skills to Jobs, the Transition Pipeline. Please join me in welcoming our moderator, Mr. Pedro Mora, the Strategic Partnership Director at Coursera. Mr. Pedro, go ahead.
Right. Okay. So, well, thank you very much. And I hope you can hear me over there because when I came over yesterday and I was told that we would have like a silent session, I was actually thinking about it. It seems a little bit like an oxymoron, like how people will hear, but I assume that you all have your speakers and it's working all fine. If you can hear me, you can nod. If you cannot hear me, you can nod as well. And I know that you're not hearing anything, you're just being polite. So just give me a smile and you'll be fine. Um, but jokes aside, I think that the session that we're going to have today obviously has a little bit of a pigback on everything that we discussed in sessions yesterday. Um, we obviously think this is quite timely. So, for example, according to the Coursera's latest report on skills, which is based on 180 million learners across the world, we do see that there are signs that the gap between learning and employment is tightening, but it's not fully closed. So when you take a look at the statistics, you will see that, for example, between last year to this year, over 40% of learners have been actually taking courses in areas of very, very big demand, like AI, business skills, data science. But this is obviously the positive of the analysis. The, let's say, not so positive is that the average number of people that complete Coursera courses are still showcasing that in some regions they're way behind, below 60%, below what, 40% actually, in terms of taking courses associated with micro-credentials. And I say this because micro-credentials are obviously extremely important right now. They are the typical certifications that are recognized by employers, okay? And last week, we did have a very interesting conversations with some university leaders who are, at this point in time, very preoccupied about how they get their learners better prepared to face the job market. So we do see a little bit of a dichotomy over there, like, the expectations of the employers, the organizations that are, training people, and at the same time, the universities that face this, let's say, tension between the traditional approach to teaching and a more innovative, more focused on emerging skills. And how you reconcile that, I think that that's actually what I want to hear from the panelists today. So for today, we have leaders from business, from education, corporations, and government as well. And I really love to invite them to come over and have a nice discussion. It's going to be a very informal discussion with questions that I prepared for them. So I'm going to call them all and invite them to come to the stage. So I have the pleasure to call Mr. Charles Kuiler, who is the GM Global Leadership Learning Innovation for MTM. So Charles, please. And we also have Dr. Keenan Bahasi, who is Labor Market and Public Policy Advisor. I also have the pleasure to have a colleague of mine, Ms. Nesma Mostafa, who heads the MENA Higher Education Insights for the British Council. And last but not least, we have Dr. Amma Mahari, who is Executive Director for the DGE Gov Academy. So, pleasure to have you there. So, Dr. Amma, if you want to maybe sit over there, and I will take my place over here. Okay. I'm going to test my microphone. Still working all right? Yeah? All good? Very nice. So, I have rounds of questions for all of you, and I think that they're going to be very challenging, and love to see what insights you're going to be able to offer to me today. But I want to start with you, Charles, because I know that MTM is kind of like leading in conversations we had the last 2 days. There's quite a well established framework of, say, skills-based um, um, training for employees. Now, my question is, what are the key differences between a skills-based and a role-based organization, and why is this distinction important for the future? I would say that from the perspective of MTM, how are you navigating this transition that we see right now?
Can everyone hear me? You can hear me? Should I?
You have to wear the. We are in a very UN focused say session, so just to ensure that you get the translation. There you go. Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Good.
Thank you, Pedro, and a warm MTN yellow. Yellow is our official greeting in our company. We are 14,000 people, and we've just achieved 300 million customers on the African continent. So it's a proud moment. But to get there, your question is very important. What is the difference between a skills-based and a role-based organization? Let me ask the audience. Which one of the two do you think is the most important? Who's in favor of a role-based organization? And who's in favor of a skills-based? So everybody in favor with a role-based organization, would you like to raise your hands? I got one. I got one. Anybody else? Okay, everybody in favor of a skills-based organization? All right, so the majority of thinking at the moment is that the skills-based organization is more important. The question is not which one is more important. The question is why. Why is it important that you believe you need to shift to a skills-based organization? And I think our conclusion was that it's not either or. It's actually both and. Jobs and roles are not going away, but the way in which we actually approach in growing and developing and utilizing those jobs and those roles is where the skills-based thinking is becoming more important. So from an MTN perspective, our journey started about 10 years ago when we realized that focusing on the traditional job thinking, where there's more stability, there's more security, there's more predictability, is not going to work for a fundamental reason, and that was our business transformation agenda. We started saying we don't want to be a telecommunications company. We want to be a digital solutions company. So the first lesson we learned was, what's your business strategy? And that will inform the next question is, okay, what skills do we need in order to deliver on that business strategy? So our framework, and this is the second point, what is your framework by which you're now going to decide how to identify the skills and how you're going to then deliver on those skills requirements for the business? So I want to share with you something that I hope you can go and apply as well. Our framework is very simple. I want you to think of a normal white page. Draw a cross in the middle, 4 blocks, okay? On the x-axis, you have we, at scale. On the other side, you have me, personalized. On the y-axis top, you have future, and at the bottom, you have today. Got it? 4 sandboxes. So the first thing we realized is that the World Economic Forum, which many of us looks at that, started communicating the importance of 3 critical skills: digital, social, and cognitive. So what we did is, we then said, okay, if these are the future skills that are going to make sure that our employees stay relevant, we started communicating the importance of a lifelong learner mindset. So we started educating employees to say the world is changing very fast, our company is changing very fast. What are we going to do to start preparing people for these new digital skills? Things like design thinking, digital marketing, analytical thinking, how are we going to prepare them for the social skills that's going to be required, like empathy, collaboration, and then, of course, how are we going to develop them in terms of the cognitive skills, creative thinking, logical reasoning. So we launched a massive campaign then to build a future-fit talent organization. And that was our first one. We said digital social cognitive skills are important for the future. So that was first block on the right hand. Future skills at scale. 14,000 people given the opportunity to come and learn these skills. The second phase was, as the organization strategy evolved, we then started realizing, but hang on, we also need to focus around what are the skills necessary to perform for today. And how are some of the functional areas like finance and HR and supply chain, how are they evolving to adapt to the new strategy? So in that context, we started deploying much more e-learning based programs, and we started identifying certain programs with partners that can start helping the functional, traditional type of roles to also start adopting new skills. The last two phases, in conclusion to your question, is really when we accelerated. And we have recently also again adjusted our strategy and said we no longer want to be a digital solutions company, we want to be a platform business. We are competing now with Facebook and Google and even Microsoft. So we're not a traditional telco company anymore. We're actually a platform business. And the board then said, what are the critical skills we needed? So again, now we identified 5 critical skills: cloud, software engineering, AI and ML, fintech. But the approach was different. We took a skills-based approach by saying, for those skills, how do we develop personalized learning journeys for the future? So now we're in the top left called sandbox. Future skills, but personalized. And that was a big shift in our organization, because now we started also anchoring to say, what can I do with a AI machine learning skill? Can I become a data analyst? Can I become a data scientist? And that's where the shift becomes a personalization has become very important. And that's where we also partnered with companies like Coursera, with Microsoft Academy, with Skillsoft, Percipio, to be able to design very personalized learning journeys for those skills, but communicating to employees, what can you do with the skill? What type of role opportunities are there? And then the last phase where we are now recently this year is the board said, okay, this new platform strategy, what are the critical roles you're going to need that's going to use those critical skills? So now you can see why I'm saying it's not either or. We are both skills-based and still role-based organization. We identified 10 critical roles. DevOps engineers, cybersecurity specialists, customer experience specialists, product developers in an app environment. Because remember now, a platform business is very much driven by apps. And immediately then we designed, again, specialized learning journeys that said, right, you can upskill yourself. If you are a customer call center agent, how can we give you an opportunity to go and upskill yourself to become a product development manager? And that to me has been a very big shift now where, again, now we're at the personalization, but we're at the for today. And I think that framework, thinking about how do you scale up upskilling versus personalized journeys, how do you develop for the future, but at the same time prepare for today? And that's been really the journey that we've gone through. And I think you can apply that framework to any function and help them say, what are the critical skills that you need to build and why? What are the critical roles you need to protect and why? Are you future focused? Are you present focused? Do you want to do it at scale? Lots of people we want to address, the whole finance community? Or do we only want to address the CFOs?
Thank you. That's really insightful. And then I think to myself, obviously, that is a very important perspective from, let's say, a corporate standpoint, which can be applied in, let's say, can be scaled, as you said yourself. And that leads me to think about, okay, like when you take that into a national level, things become a little bit more complex. And I think that's where I wanted to ask Dr. Keenan in terms of the interventions, especially when you think about policies and how, what sort of benefits these can be, um, well, they can lead in terms of like projects like this or initiatives. So my question, Dr. Keenan, is more in terms of the policy standpoint. What sort of key interventions you feel governments can implement to prioritize, close the gap between workforce supply and industry demand?
All right. Thank you, Pedro. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. You can all hear me, right? Because I can't tell. Okay, good. First, I mean, the labor market gap, as Pedro addressed it, is of course it's not a new challenge, right? Countries around the world, especially with industrial revolutions and especially booming countries like the UAE in particular, where we are in a country where it attracts talents from all over the world to fulfill the demands of the employers. So that on its own tells you exactly how fundamental and how important a crucial issue is. So the gap itself is not always a negative thing. It's a sign of economic growth. It's a sign of a rapid development in the economy, in education, and also in technological advancement and all of that. So we always have to look at it as well from a positive side. But traditionally, the way how governments, Pedros, they've actually anticipated the labor market demand. There are traditional ways, of course, like employer surveys and just scrapping vacancies from the online, looking at advertisements, trying to understand exactly what employers need in terms of skills, competencies, and how would that actually really portray the future. Because foresight is always basically we look at historical, data, understand exactly how the economy evolved and how would that actually reshape the future. Now, the tools are there, quite traditional. We used to call it the labor market information systems. Now we call it labor market intelligence. Trying to be more up to date and coping with all of the rapid changing in the economy. But then we were also hit by the war on talents, issue, where it's not only countries like UAE is actually attracting talents, but there are so many other countries around the world, like Singapore, Canada, Germany, right, the UK. So all countries actually fighting for those talents who can actually come. And why is that? Because previously we looked at skills as a reaction. So the economy is booming, so let's build capacities to fuel the economy, right? Nowadays, we had a vision. We see the economy of how it's going to look like. So we need the skills now to achieve that economy. So the skills diversification has become the influence for economic growth rather than being more a reaction, okay? So being proactive. And that's why we attract people in AI, because we want AI sectors in the country. That's why we attract people in healthcare, because in science and engineering, because that's how we see the future of the country. It's not like we are very advanced now and we need to fulfill that with the right requirements. So this is how the world is actually changing, and in particular UAE. And not only that, and I think we see also countries in the region, Saudi, Qatar, they're also moving towards talent attractions and moving towards similar examples. Now, when it comes to how things are evolving now and how we can actually really cope and be proactive, so traditional methods like surveys and tools and employers and vacancies are kind of like démodé, outdated, right? We'll try to look at now how AI could actually really predict the future when it comes to skills. So we look at, let me give you a very simple example that you can think of how would this actually foresight the skills in the next 5 to 10 years. If I look at human consumptions of food, does it tell me anything about a future obesity? For example, it does, right? Especially if I develop an AI, if those who are familiar with AI tools, AI supervised machine learning engine, okay, about human consumptions of food. It could tell me that maybe because of what people consume of food today or over the last 5 years, there might be an increase in obesity, okay? An increase of obesity could actually tell me that I might need more nurses, more personal trainers, more nutritionists, more healthcare providers. So this is being proactive about what could happen. And actually, this was evident when COVID hit. Suddenly, we see a rise of nurses everywhere in the world. I mean, the UAE has given golden visas to nurses to attract them to come to the UAE. And we all know of that. Okay, so this is, but we were more again reactive to the how things were evolving and changing. But how we could actually be proactive, and that's how we see AI could actually really play a fundamental role. One more thing, Pedro, before I conclude, we see that because now skills are becoming so in depth, drilled down into subsector activities. Like we cannot think of skills as, let's say, psychologists, or we cannot think of skills as vocational, like plumber, welding. We are starting to talk about niche in skills itself, subsectors of the economy. And this is why many countries have been, especially in the UK, and we see it happening in Saudi, they've started developing skills councils, sectoral councils for skills. That for a specialized skill, we see a industry come with education together and government. They sit on the table and they discuss the future of that sector together. And this is how government interventions and policies are actually being reshaped to address not only the disruptions in the economy, but in every sector, especially with the use of AI technology and the use of in a country where we attract talent, where things are quite unpredictable sometimes in our economies.
That's very nice. Thank you. I mean, everything you're saying sort of brings me back to 4 weeks ago when we had a very nice forum organized by the British Council in London. And in that, we had the participation of the Minister of Education from Egypt. And I recall vividly that after the panel, I was actually in that panel, and I had a very, very quick chat with him. And, he was saying that the biggest problem right now is that there are several actors. I mean, he actually, refer to things that you discussed in play to try to solve a problem like that, which is obviously adding another layer of complexity, and especially when it comes to education standards. And I think that it leads me to the next question. I wanted to kind of like get a little bit of a sense when it comes to the education segment and this disparity that exists between job expectations, corporations. I mean, taking the segue from what Charles was saying. Nesma, I actually wanted to talk to you about it. I mean, the British Council plays a very unique role in terms of connecting education, policies, industry. In your perspective, what are the biggest challenges in aligning education outcomes with employability needs across the different regions?
Thank you so much, Pedro. I will ask the same question as colleagues. You hear me okay? Okay, perfect. So can I first brief our audience about what British Council does, because it's often perceived as English and exams, which is, of course, part of the work we do, half of the work we do. The other half of the work we do is work in culture and engagement. So we have programs that aim in different sectors: arts, culture, creative economy, and education. And I work under the education sector, higher education to be specific. And in higher education, we have several programs, including grants schemes to support UK universities and universities in 100 countries where we operate, explore partnerships to meet goals that shared goals that they have. Another program that we have has to do with student mobility, so supporting students getting opportunities abroad, and UK students also experiencing studying abroad. We have alumni support, so to just come full circle and try and bridge the gap after graduation, because there's always going to be some sort of gap due to the pace, which is one of the challenges I'll come to in a bit. And finally, my area of work, and this is the fourth program we have, which is higher education insights. And in this work, British Council commissions research, and also our team does research on higher education. So thinking of or finding pain points, challenges, and opportunities for partnerships where different countries can come together and work towards goals. And now we're 5 years from the 2030 SDGs, and we're not doing well globally, but still there are positive examples. And so this is what we do in higher education, in brief. And to your question, the challenges, I think being here today and listening to colleagues speak, I think this is exactly what should be happening. We're not talking enough, and the employers are designing their own learning pathways to support their institutional goals. The universities are working separately and in a very somewhat rigid format. Quality or qualification frameworks are not flexible enough to kind of pick up the pace of industry and have include like things like Pedro mentioned earlier, like micro credentials, for instance. The higher education system is not agile enough, and policies come in play here, because even if higher education institutions want to pick up pace, there are constraints at a policy level, at a capacity level, at a resource level. So this is another challenge. So the framework, the qualification frameworks are rigid. Employers and universities are not often in a conversation. The skills are changing very rapidly, and we've heard yesterday from Charlie from Coursera about how more than 50% of us will need to reskill in a few years. So this is how obsolete some of our skills are going to become. So that's another thing. And I would say also, there's one more point I want to, it's and that takes us back to the SDGs. We're still not equitable in terms of access to educational opportunity, as globally there are things standing in the way of having access to higher education, quality higher education opportunities for students globally. Even in the most well-resourced countries, still there are challenges for people with disabilities, challenges for women and girls, challenges for even language itself. So like the language of knowledge is still controlled by English, basically. And so that also does more of challenges to equitable access to quality education. So these are some of the challenges, and a lot of the work we do tries and explores that. So if I would highlight a few of the reports, there's the British Council series of reports it's called What We Know, and that's basically we go and ask young people about their opinions about their experiences in life and what they want, and what could help them achieve their potential. And they're still telling us access to quality education, equitable access to quality education, and still telling us in 2025 our skills in higher education are not helping us find the right jobs for us or perform within the current market. So I'll stop here.
That's all right. Thank you. Thank you very much. So everything I've heard so far, obviously very insightful, but still in the realm of, it's very conceptual. Talked about policies, frameworks, education standards. I wanted to kind of maybe lead towards a more practical, well-established initiative that is actually running for years now, very successfully. I actually have the pleasure of collaborating with Dr. Amna on that. And I wanted to approach the DGE, the Gov Academy, with a question concerning how the Gov Academy is building digital and leadership capabilities, to implement that across civil servants and, basically ensure that they are future ready in terms of like skills for jobs. I'd love to see if you could tell a little bit more about how the DGE Gov Academy is executing it successfully across all these years.
Thank you, Pedro. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here in this panel. Actually, let me brief you first about Gov Academy. We are a part of Department of Enablement of Government of Abu Dhabi. Gov Academy established 2018. We are serving more than 41 entities, more than 23,000 employees across Abu Dhabi government. But as well, we are now covering job seekers and retirees and social beneficiaries as well. So we have a lot of our mandate itself serving personalized learning journeys and different functions, either HR, finance, procurement, for upskilling and reskilling all employees and different persona. We have executive development programs in collaboration with Harvard Kennedy School, with Stanford, with Oxford, all the high world-class university globally. And even now we are working closely with Lee Kuan Yew Public School in Singapore. And we have a civil service college in Singapore as well as a partner. In terms of assessment, we are doing an assessment programs for all Abu Dhabi government employees in terms of recruitment, in terms of promotion, so on and so forth. Plus, we have AI Native Academy. So we are working with our partners, Microsoft, AWS Academy, PwC Academy, for especially AI. And we had AI accelerator program for 5 persona. Proudly, I can say that we have 32,000 completed courses on AI. So we covered 93% of Abu Dhabi government employees. They are AI ready. So we have a program AI for all. So everyone in Abu Dhabi government and different levels, they have taken a course or learning intervention in person or either online for the AI. As you know, Abu Dhabi ambition to be AI native city. So all what we are doing in Gov Academy is focusing on being ready in AI. We have an AI majlises, so we went beyond the AI training programs for employees. Now we are going to each majlis in different cities, Abu Dhabi, Al Ain, Al Dhafra, and we are providing all the community members with the AI knowledge. That's in brief.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Amna. So I would say, Charles, and I think this is for you. When I think about upskilling, reskilling initiatives, and we tend, in Coursera, we tend to work with different sectors, corporate, government, higher education. There is an impulse to obviously implement projects that are, let's say, targeting those, points. But it's actually, as I said, it's an impulse. There is not much, I'd say, epistemology around, like, what is the value of it? How does it work? Are you doing just for the sake of doing and showcasing, externally that that's actually a program that you have internally? From your perspective, from NTM's perspective, I'd love to understand, how do you actually work in terms of indicating value, measuring value and impact of upskilling projects, and how that, let's say, connects with more long-term strategic plans that, the company puts in place?
Thank you, Pedro. Yes, very important question that I get asked many times from my HR director and from my group exco. I think there's three things that we've clarified. On the one side, there's the skills adoption metric. That really is informed as well by supply and demand. what is the supply of critical skills we have in order to achieve a specific business objective, or versus what is the demand we need, and what is that gap. And I think this is a gap that cannot just be closed internally. It's a gap that also comes back, to your point, of how the collaboration on building the talent pipelines and the skills pipelines from the tertiary institution, government academies, and I think that's where that collaboration is very, very important. So the first metric is, how are we adopting the skills in the organization? What's the quality of our skills inventory? One of the metrics we use as part of adoption is certification. That's why your strategic partners with your universities, with external academies like Microsoft Academy, Coursera, is we wanted to make sure that the quality of the skills inventory is credible. And secondly, that the skills inventory aligns to our strategic goals and objectives. And that can happen again at a functional level, where we're trying to accelerate and create future-fit finance people, future-fit HR people. And especially with AI, as doctors mentioned. At the moment, our big challenge is to get AI adoption, AI fluency with 14,000 people. So we have a culture strategy to educate everybody on why AI is important, what does it mean for you, and how can you responsibly use it. That's probably the biggest driver, responsible use of AI. So there's various ways in terms of measuring, but at the end of the day, we want to know what's the quality of the skills inventory. The second one is utilization. How are we utilizing the skills? And that's where the shift comes from just building the skills to actually creating a talent marketplace. So we see MTN across 14 countries as being a global talent marketplace, a regional talent marketplace, but also a local talent marketplace. So we are now working with our operations, MTN Nigeria. Here's how we are enhancing the analytical skills for MTN Nigeria, for the country, but it's also a shared skill that's required for the entire West Africa region. So utilization is very important. Of course, business metrics is how are these certified people or how are the skills accredited individuals being applied in special projects. We have about 18 AI use cases that we are currently running. We need specific skilled people in those use cases. We need programmers, software engineers, data scientists. But the question they ask to us as learning is, how do we know you're providing us with a quality product? The important thing about utilization also is in the HR agenda of recruitment and placement. I think this is probably the biggest opportunity where your upskilling is starting to give you return on investment. If I provide talent that can be viewed by the line managers as ready to place in a role, firstly, I reduce my dependency on external recruiters. Secondly, I am giving a cultural message that you can grow in this organization. And thirdly, based on the quality of the upskilling initiative, there's a performance output, improved speed of decision making, improved quality of innovation, etc. So I think adoption, firstly, utilization, secondly, and then the last point is, of course, the outcomes. And some of it I've mentioned, cost efficiency reductions, innovation from, like design thinking. Design thinking has become a critical skill for us to help us teach people how to innovate, how to come up with new ideas to solve problems. Of course, there's a customer experience impact, there's a revenue impact, and there's a productivity and performance impact. So all our use cases at the moment have those three metrics. Is it a revenue increase outcome? Is it a productivity or performance outcome? Or is it a customer experience outcome? The point is, you have to link your upskilling strategies with those three metrics. Don't forget the outcomes one, because then you're becoming very transactional. Our objective is to have a transformational impact. And I think a lot of the vision of what I've heard here as well is you're trying to transform the region, to uplift the region, to create AI fluent talent that can be available to the private sector, the government sector, the services sectors. And we formed an AI club recently with Duke University, And five organizations, five different organizations, Cisco, FirstRand, NetBank, MasterCard. We are collaborating now, not for our own individual upskilling objectives, but AI for Africa. So it's good to have that long-term visions that many of the presenters are also talking about, and how private sector, educational sector, governments need to start working around, because we're trying to achieve the same objective, we're trying to solve the same problem.
Thank you so much. So I was hearing utilization, engagement outcomes, and obviously all these elements kind of like have the segue to data. Like data is kind of like the produce of all that. But at the same time, you see that we do live in a world with abundance of data. There is a very interesting article at The Economist I read a few months ago that tells on how you can tell any story you want taking data left or right. It's actually very easy to sort of manipulate to create a narrative. Now, with that in mind, I mean, I keep thinking, okay, how do you actually, let's say, implement a way to ensure that your metrics are telling the fact? So I kind of like wanted to go back to Dr. Keenan on that, because we were previously talking about policies, but then now, in the terms of the next step in the application, I mean, how data-driven approaches, from your perspective, Dr. Keenan, and forecasting tools as well help policymakers anticipating, future skills needs and shaping, say, strategies on a national scale?
Well, I think the question around data is quite crucial when it comes to policy, and it's the way how we design the policy, how we evaluate the policy, and how we understand the impact of that policy after some time, right? And that's how we derive evidence. Now, when it comes to going back to my previous intervention on that, I mean, learning more, it helps us to somehow design new policies, right? Understanding exactly the different patterns of business, let's say, transactions. And especially with AI-enabled tools, that could guide us in understanding exactly how the dynamic in a certain sector is actually evolving. So for instance, if I look at back again to the health dynamics, right? Understanding the health situations. We look at understanding of how the certain diseases are evolving. We look at how understanding more about the frequency of people seeking help, and the kind of service and services that was actually delivered to them. And this is by how we design our policies based on understanding the current situation. So to be more responsive to the changes in the labor market. Now, what's missing when it comes to data is that oftentimes we see the educational institutions that are somehow quite behind how the economic growth is actually evolving. And this is due to the lack of really understanding of how things are moving. And the problem, it's not because that there's not enough research or understanding of how the market is changing. It's just because sometimes it's not easy to transform a curricula from a role-based to a competency-based, like what just Charles talked about. And for you to do such a rigorous research, okay, rigorous research to understand these changes and to kind of like introduce in your programs and to be quite responsive and dynamics, it requires a different educational system, a different mindset of how we approach learning and how we approach education. And now we're facing another challenge that has also somehow interfered in the education system, the Gen AI, right? Now, Gen AI, it's a way to to be able, of course, now we hear a lot about how it has disrupted the education systems. It's hard now for like for academic or training or learning institutions to kind of like ensure that people are learning with the presence of Gen AI tools. But now what's been recently working on is that Gen AI will start introducing more of an interactive learning model based on the skill that we need to develop. So let's say, for example, we graduate with a business degree, we graduate with a health, public health or engineering, etc. But does that mean we have developed enough critical thinking? Do we have the right employability skills required, whether it's communication, problem solving, leadership, as Dr. Amna said, and all of the other like Jadara program, the ones that they're currently working on, and there's so many other programs. Do they really people have actually developed those skills? Now, the question of how we could utilize AI in a way based on best practices, based on machine learning, data has been collected for decades, based on my personal interactions with Gen AI to deliver more a tailored learning environment. So critical thinking becomes, learning critical thinking becomes an interactive tool with Gen AI, rather than being like asking questions and getting answers back. So it becomes like a chat. And that's how also Gen AI evolves based on my interactions and other people's interaction with it, because it's at the end of the day, it's a machine learning tool, right? It's an engine. And would reflect based on that. So again, yes, when it comes to data, I think what's also sometimes missing or not taken to further is really understanding the impact over some time. Understanding the impact of education, for example, on how this is actually being translated into economic or social or even environmental, engines for growth, for development, etc. Thank you.
That's really lovely. And thank you. And it brought me back to a conversation that was in place here yesterday. It was a panel that was focused on public and private initiatives, which kind of like highlighted that problems like this cannot be resolved by one entity only. There is actually a great need to foster more collaboration, and especially, let's say cross-regional collaboration. I think that our collaboration with UNDP and Coursera is actually quite a good example, in the sense that there are different actors playing different roles in terms of making the whole program work, let's say, towards the right direction. And without those expertises from the different, institutions, we wouldn't really go anywhere. And that's actually where I wanted to take the discussion with you, Nesma. I mean, from the perspective of the British Council, like, how can cross-border collaboration support development of globally relevant skills? I think I would say particularly in areas where you see high rates of youth unemployment.
Thank you, Pedro. It's a core mission at British Council to build these collaboration, and skills is at the heart of education, of course, knowledge, skills, and but I wanted first to share certain models that where partnerships helped nations kind of build capacity for skills that were not existing, but as we are speaking, something popped up in my head, and I have this urge to kind of also share with our audience. Of course, globally we're facing challenges, one of which is definitely conflict, and conflict-affected countries are lose the capacity of educating their people and building the skills of their people. And we've seen, because of the conflict increase, we've seen a lot of actors come together and bring up initiatives that support human development and interventions that are brilliant. We at British Council we have the higher education scholarship for Palestinian scholars, basically building capacity of educators, Palestinian educators, to go back, so they go to the UK or get scholarship across the region even, and then go back to rebuild the higher education system and then support the nation. We have we've seen also outside of British Council, but British universities coming together to think about digital pathways to support again students or learners who've been affected not just by conflict but just don't have access. Yesterday when I was in the launch of the index, the knowledge index. It was a brilliant model that you're working, the open access, and that's partnership based. So, of course, partnerships help bridge knowledge gap, skill gap, but not only at an individual level to become employable, but actually at a country level, at a state level. Last year also we had published a report on sustainability of transnational education partnerships. And so we were trying to understand what makes partnerships sustainable in higher education, what makes them continue and actually add value to the countries where they are. And one example, of course, several examples, including universities here at the UAE, like Middlesex University, for instance, building capacity in psychology, for instance, for the UAE. In Qatar, there's Qatar Police Academy partnering with UCLAN to build capacity in firefighting or in fire management, and so that yes, skills directly relevant to the state needs, directly relevant to people, and employability at a larger scale too. So
Nice. Okay, so I mean, transformation obviously is the key, but when I think about transformation, especially in the, let's say, realm of public sector, it's always a lot more complex, and it tends to go, in a slower pace. We have some exceptions. I mean, I think that the DG Gov Academy has been leading very fast-paced transformation projects. I mean, Dr. Ahmed, my question is actually for you. How can, I would say actually thinking about the examples that you could offer around transformation in public sector, especially when it comes to upskilling and fostering efficiency, because I know that this is something that the DG Gov Academy is really focusing efficiency and delivery. Would you be able to tell a little bit more about these examples to us?
Yeah, actually, when we are talking about the transformation, we are putting in our mind the human themselves. We are not thinking about only technology or only services. We are thinking about the human and the development of people, how we will make it, and what is the impact of those kind of learning intervention or human development. That's why, if you can notice, our initiatives always serving the development needs of the government itself, not only technology. So it's a ecosystem, whole comprehensive ecosystem together, completing each other. One of the impact of our learning interventions, but before that, I would like to mention that we have one-stop shop called TEM application. It works on all the services, more than 100 services in one-stop shop. So your trade license, your renew of your rent, anything, it will be found on one-stop shop. So this one of the, it was the challenge for everyone, citizen or employees in Abu Dhabi. We have TAM application. Another thing in terms of learning, we have learning application called طموح. It means passion. So طموح, it has a lot of different learning personalized journeys and different set of skills, and our collaboration with the different global partner like Coursera, LinkedIn, AWS, Open Sesame, and a lot of different providers. Another example I can say about the impact of our transformation efficiency is the unified ERP system, the one we did it with Oracle as well. So all our processes, the procedures, 100% automated today. So this is one of the impact as well. So we talked about TEM, the application, the service solution. We talk about طموح, the learning application, one-stop shop for all the learning intervention, and it has community of practice. So if you would like to be a member of a community of practice of AI, you will find it, community of practice of data, community of practice of human resources management. Every community or function, they have their own community for knowledge exchange and experience exchange as well. Another thing is the AI native academy and AI majlises as well. It has a big and huge impact with the community members. And we have another initiative called lifelong learning, which is for all the citizens as well. They have personalized learning journeys. They can have it easily in طموح, our learning application.
So I think it's actually quite a good diversity in terms of like touch points and how employees are, engaging with those types of skills. I think it's also very well curated in terms of like, personalization as well. It's not like a one-size-fits-all solution. What we see with the DG is that everything is very segmented, based on functions, based on, in-demand skills. So I think that's probably one of the drivers of success, and it's very organic as well. Now, I understand that we are now finished with, we don't have more time, so we could keep this conversation going for the rest of the day, but I just wanted to thank all of you, our panelists, for their insights, and the public for attending as well. And I hope you have a good rest of the events. Thank you.